The deadline for the so-called supercommittee to come up with a plan to slash the debt is now just 1 week away. Congressman Peter Welch is a Democrat from Vermont and Chief Deputy Whip, and I'm delighted to say he joins us now. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
There are reports the Gang of Six is preparing their own deficit reduction plan if this committee fails to produce a solution, and it looks like that. Do you not think that's a better way to go?
Well, basically, there is a lot of pessimism as to whether there's going to be anything presented by the supercommittee, so-called. And what the backup plan is, who knows? Really, everybody's got an idea, but nobody's got an answer.
Let me show you what Republican Senator Tom Coburn of Nebraska wrote in a report titled "Subsidies of the Rich and Famous." This week, he says millionaires are even receiving government checks for not working. This welfare for the well-off, costing billions of dollars a year, is being paid for with the taxes of the less fortunate. It's the only sane Republican on Capitol Hill. Why isn't he on the supercommittee? I
thought you were quoting Bernie Sanders. No, that's great. that is great. And see, that kind of acknowledgement that we need from some Republicans. And then on our side, we've got to acknowledge that we can't have health care costs going up 2 and 3 times the rate of inflation, the rate of profits and growth. And that's why many of us think that the best way forward is to have a big plan, to be ambitious, to try to do $4 trillion over 10 years, where in order to accomplish it, you've got to put serious revenues on the table, much of which can come from cleaning up the tax code and those unfair disparities, and some of which can come by making overdue cost containment steps in our health care programs, including Medicare. So there's a policy way we could proceed. It's a political deadlock that's strangling us.
Is it your view, sir, that we're going to reach agreement in time for Thanksgiving or not?
I'm pessimistic.
You just don't think that's possible?
Well, I don't see it. And there's a lot of back and forth, and it looks like a PR game is being played on both sides. And, you know, the fact is, it's a very difficult problem when you're trying to have 12 people in a small room come up with something that isn't getting vetted by committees and by other members of Congress, because that process of making the compromises is something that is painful, but has to be done, in my view, more in public. But I think that 2 things. One, if we could get back, there were 150 of us who basically are in support of a big deal. That allows all of us to have skin in the game. Secondly, we should be doing a major infrastructure program. That's an area where we could legitimately rebuild our roads and bridges, infrastructure around the country, and borrow money legitimately at record low interest rates and put people back to work. Problems that are separate and distinct, jobs and then the long-term structural deficit.
I think we all agree with that, sir. Finally, if I can ask you, how's your home state of Vermont recovering from the damage caused by the devastating flooding last summer? And did you get the funds that you needed to repair all the bridges? Because, of course, ski season is upon us, isn't it?
That's right. Martin, it looks good. We've got a conference committee report from the House and the Senate where finally we got Republicans and Democrats to work together, and we fully funded the disaster relief program. And for Vermont, something that was incredibly important, we took this $100 million cap off because our damage is in the range of $200 million. So we're very optimistic. We're going to vote tomorrow. And frankly, that couldn't have happened without Republicans in the Irene coalition. And I have to thank Mr. Cantor and Mr. Boehner for their willingness to help Vermont out. They got it, that this was a disaster. It wasn't political.
Wow. Congressman Peter Welch of Vermont offering immense praise to Speaker Boehner. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back to clear the air.